Good afternoon, everyone. Looks like it's about noon. Hopefully everyone is signing in and ready to start. Today's session, we will be reviewing the IHI content on building a culture of hope, finishing our Falls PIP, and starting on staff morale, which I guess is what I have here for the agenda for today. Again, IHI video here brief, but we'll have some discussion before that. Kelly has prepared several questions for us to openly discuss. Hopefully we have just as much interaction this week as we had last week, because that was pretty amazing. We'll finish up discussion on our Falls PIP and begin discussing, I'm sure everyone's favorite topic of staffing and staff morale. And if we have time, we have a potential video on Falls. So I believe we have a poll, Casey, to discuss our next IHI content area. These are the videos that we show near the beginning of the sessions. They've been about 10 minutes in length. If you guys could please vote on which topic you might want to address next. These are the remaining IHI content areas. Excellent. We will begin discussing more of the vaccination and testing starting next week. Thank you all for voting. Now we're going to transition into some of these pre-video questions that Kelly has pulled up for us. Kelly, I'll let you go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Sarah. And guys, just week after week, we're putting these questions out prior to our video to kind of get your mind on topic and things you can think about of what's going on in your facility. So the first question we have is, does your organization represent a culture of hope? And I think you'll get more of a description in the video of what that looks like and start thinking about ways that you can incorporate in your facility, if not already in practice. And if anyone has, I'll pull up the chat too, comments in the chat. I know it is a trying time right now, so it's kind of hard to see that word hope during these times, but in order to continue to boost morale and have a positive work environment, you got to try to set that tone. And you can go to the next slide. The next question is, how do you build confidence in your team? Especially during this pandemic, with all of the changes in the rules and guidance by state and federal or even local health authorities, it's probably been somewhat challenging to build that confidence because it's ever changing, and probably a lot of increased auditing and monitoring of your staff's day-to-day routine. So we've got to start looking at keeping them in that positive atmosphere and how are we building their confidence while they're working through their day. You can go to the next one, Casey, or Sarah one. Perfect.
Judy also said that positive feedback is one way that they.
Yep, thank you. Absolutely. Really reframing your communication with your staff is important. So we talked, I know, in the first phase about looking for that opportunity for improvement opposed to looking for that problem that's in place. So I think that's a good point, Judy. If you continually have those conversations with positive feedback, you'll find that. Thanks for that chat there, Judy. And then finally, do you lead with positivity? I think as leaders in any organization, especially in the healthcare field right now, we have to model that positive approach in order for our staff to fall in line with it as well. I know I've probably said before, smiles are contagious. And I think last week on the video, she made a comment that those negative attitudes are contagious too, and it kind of rolls down. So I think it's important that we look at that. I was on an echo call filling in for someone earlier this week too, and there were certain phrases that you can really put a stop to that negativity and just challenge folks whenever they bring it, like, oh, well, she does that all the time, or well, they're always late. Like those negative comments can be challenged in the moment and then turn them around to a positive environment. So if it's, oh, well, that department is always late. Well, are they really always late, or are they late on occasion? And really trying to challenge those negative comments in order to get that positive culture. All right, and I think we're ready for the video. And guys, just think about those questions as we're watching this. And if you have comments or questions, just put them in the chat.
Today's session on leadership roles and behaviors to support teams during the COVID-19 pandemic as it pertains to psychological safety and emotional well-being. And the topic of our last month was a vision of hope. My name is Sarah Sjostrom. I am the Associate Chief Nursing Officer at Hebrew Rehabilitation Center, and I'm pleased to present today's module. So we begin here with, what is the value of hope? Why is this such a vital concept? And there's a quote that says, to live without hope is to cease to live. And it becomes so true when we consider the emotional well-being and the morale of our teams. This is not just, fluff. This is true evidence-based research that supports a direct association between hope and well-being. And as we saw in previous modules, hope, or the building of confidence, is one of the essential components and foundational factors that need to be supported for an individual to overcome adversity, trauma, and disaster. And finally, hope and positivity are key factors in building long-term resilience for our team. So we can't underestimate the value of hope. As leaders, we have the opportunity for some daily doses of hope, small, tangible things that we can do each and every day with our team members to promote their sense of positivity, the culture of well-being, and their overall sense of hopefulness and future focus. And this can be done quite simply through sending your team thank you notes for jobs well done, sharing success. Here at our organization, we do storytelling where we try to take the opportunity at the beginning of meetings or the beginning of huddles to recognize what are the things that we've done that have been successful, that are in line with our cultural beliefs and fulfill our purpose and mission. Celebrate together, even the smallest of victories. If we can find those moments of celebration in times of stress, we can build a future focus. Implementing recognition programs, having friendly team competitions, and as a leader, simply being present to spread that positivity, to take the opportunity to do these small things and be there with your team to promote their doing likewise. So in addition to the small and tangible things that can be done each day to provide those daily doses of hope, a leader needs to think about the larger picture and the larger long-term strategies for building a culture of hope and positivity. And this can start with a few simple steps. First and foremost, helping your teams to understand the why, the meaning behind their work. Establishing what is the larger purpose. And this is one of the key factors in what promotes resilience, is connecting to a larger purpose. So helping employees to connect what they do each and every day and connecting that to the larger mission of the organization can be critical in helping to build hope. Operating as the cheerleader in chief and being a relentless optimist. I read that quote, cheerleader in chief, in an article, and it immediately resonated with me. When we think about the emotion contagion theory that we discussed in earlier modules, it's so critical that the leader think about the influence that they have on the overall mood and the overall team dynamic in terms of creating a positive or negative culture. And being a cheerleader in chief can help a leader to create that culture of positivity. In addition to building the positive, we also want to make sure that we hold people accountable for not using negative behaviors that can negatively impact that journey towards a culture of hope. And this doesn't mean telling people they can't have a bad day or talk about it if they have a bad day, because of course we want to normalize that it's okay not to be okay. But you do have to have zero tolerance for behaviors such as undermining or bullying, unprofessional behaviors that will disrupt the course towards building a culture of hope. We've talked about this throughout many modules, but evaluating your own mood and emotions, self-regulating, providing for self-care, because as the influential leader, you are going to have an effect on your teams. Frame a goal to maintain that positive emotional culture, not just as the leader, but work with your team so you can craft that goal together. Ask your teams, what does it look like to have a positive emotional culture? What do we need to achieve, and how can we get there? And do that as a team. As a leader, it's always important to self-reflect and understand what your own skill sets are and identify where your strengths lie. What do you bring to the table that you can help the teams do to continue to build that culture of hope? Whether fostering connections, collaborations, whatever it is that you do best, consider your strengths as it pertains to achieving your goals to build a culture of hope. And finally, both as a leader and as teams, learn to be flexible. The journey towards building resilient individuals and resilient teams is not a straight path. There are bumps in the road, and being flexible and being understanding of yourself and of others, having compassion and stockpiling compassion will allow you to achieve your goals of building a culture of hope. Thank you so much for joining us in the fifth and final module of the series on leadership roles and behaviors to support teams through COVID-19 as it pertains to psychological safety and emotional well-being. We hope you've enjoyed this series, and thank you again for watching.
So guys, if you had an opportunity to kind of think about those questions while you were listening to that video and how you can implement some of those strategies into your day-to-day operations, really use that one slide that says hopeful and try to use that as a guide for yourself as you're going through your day and to help your conversations with your staff and residents. I think we're going to move into the falls now. April, are you on?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Perfect.
Yeah, I'm logged in as Judy. We're all one team.
Okay. Oh, okay. There you are. I see you now. So April is going to kind of give us a quick update on how they are doing and how their PDSA cycle went on their falls. And I will turn it over to you.
Yeah. I guess this is an old thing that I filled out a long time ago, but we had chosen that we need to improve on communication, alert system, the fall huddle, and we collected data for 2 weeks now, which we haven't had our nurses meeting yet. So in order to implement this across there we go. So this was just on 2 units, or I mean 1 unit, Westview unit. So for 2 weeks, and you know the compliance obviously is a huge change from the first week to the second week, but we're also a very large facility, so it's really hard to reach all these different nurses on it, you know. So we educate as we go. But you know, we looked at, was the fall huddle done? Was the tool used? And some people said that they used the tool, but they didn't do the huddle, and vice versa. Was an alert sent? And a lot of the nurses would say they sent an alert, but they didn't. So I don't know what they think an alert is. And then there were some that sent the alert, but they posted the alert for 1 day. So they assigned it for 1 day. So that really doesn't help us because the people that work in 5 days won't get the alert. Was the fall charting complete? And the situation with this was the nurse thought that their fall charting was complete. And then when the manager went back and checked the charting, it wasn't. So a lot of it was changed in the TIP report. And then same with the care planning. The nurse, they think they're doing the care planning, but they're really not, or it's not going where it needs to go. So We have a nurse meeting coming up on the 27th. We're going to review all of this. We have our speaker coming in to tell them about charting and the legalities and situation. You know, if a resident were to fall and then in 6 months the family decided to sue us because of this fall leading to injury, the nurse would then have to go on the stand and report, you know, why she charted what she charted and what was going on. And I think that the nurses need to look at that and take more responsibility for what they're charting, because they're just charting like a one sentence, yeah, resident was found on floor. So we've got a lot to work to do, and this PIP will be ongoing probably for the next 5 years, to be completely honest. So yeah, that's where we are on that. And then we did update our fall huddle tool that we have out on the units. We adhered them to the vitals charts or cards so that they are available, and they're also available as a paper form on in the nursing binder. But it's really difficult to reach 50 different nurses. So we really utilize those nurse meetings to reach everyone. And then we record those nurses meetings and we put them on a health stream. It's our way of help me out. Staff education thing, but it's virtual. So it's, you know, they'll have probably 2 weeks to 4 weeks to complete it, and then I have to follow up with them for not completing it. So it takes a really long time to get everyone on board, and that's why we have to move at such a slow pace. But
Yeah, and you know, April, as I just mentioned a minute ago, we've got to reframe and look at it as an opportunity for improvement. And had you not been monitoring the compliance on using these tools, you wouldn't have been able to see that there were gaps there, and making sure that you're getting everyone educated or trained on what the process is, and the importance of following the process. Like you mentioned, you're going to have your guest speaker coming in to talk about the importance of proper charting and how that can really get you in trouble in the long run. And so I think when we see these trackers or audit tools that just say 100% across the board, how accurate is that really? Does 100% of your staff do it correct 100% of the time? I think it's okay to see some fluctuation in these numbers, because it gives you the opportunity to take time and sit down one-on-one with them and discuss what needs to be done. What it also does is, if you have these huge declines, maybe there's some gap in the system that's put in place, and so maybe it can be adapted some. Not necessarily saying yours has to be. I'm just saying that may be identified there. Michelle, Jean.
I just wanted to mention that, you know, PDSAs, in what they are really meant to be, is small tests of change. I'm listening to your description, April, and I'm just getting choked up, because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what a huge, daunting task to take on your huge building and all of your staff. And what I would love to encourage, I mean, you're already well into this project, but I'd suggest even just taking one of these indicators and starting with, you know, just a few nurses that aren't meeting that goal, and just working with 2 or 3 people to see what we can do to make it work for them. And then as we kind of get that figured out, then spread it out a little bit more with, you know, 6 nurses or 6 falls, and just seeing that, you know, okay, now how did it work for those additional fall huddles, or whatever, you know, if we're looking at the tool, maybe, you know, let's try and make that tool as individualized to your facility and your staff, so that it works for them. And then maybe we'll get better compliance with that, because that's the whole reason that QAPI and the PIPs exist, is because we all try and take on these huge projects, and they are so overwhelming. The whole goal is to just start small and do pilot testing and then tweak a little bit. You don't have to save the world all in 1 week, is my thoughts.
I would just interject too that April hit on a very, very good point in her presentation. She mentioned that the nurses were to initiate an alert after a fall, and they indicated they had, but they hadn't. And so she said, you know, what constituted an alert to them is kind of questionable. And I think that that really points out the importance of being very clear in the interventions. You don't want to be overwhelmingly detailed, but in being very clear, what might be intuitive to the writer isn't always intuitive to the caregiver.
Absolutely. And April, just for clarification, I know you had originally started this on one unit. Did you tell me you pushed it through the entire facility, or are you still just using it on that one unit?
No, we're still just on one unit. We have to have a nurses meeting in order to push it out to more units. And yeah, you know, you gotta remember there's only 7 days of data collection too, so 14 days isn't very long to look at. You know, and in 1 week we only have 10 falls, and the next week we have 5 falls. You're going to see a huge difference in percentage because you're only evaluating 5 falls versus 10 or 20. So you got to think about the big picture there too. But according to our list of things that we need to improve, this is a very small part of it. So we're going to make small steps over the next few years to improve. Yep.
So does anyone else have any questions or thoughts for April and her team, or have you done something with your performance improvement plan or your PDSA cycle that you would like to share that's been successful or that has not been successful? And how did you mitigate those issues? I'm watching in the chat there too.
Kelly, it seems like one of the biggest things is staff education.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I can say from experience, if I was back in the facility, I would probably change my ways in a lot of things. But we a lot of times did the what I used to call drive-by in-services, and you put out your in-service information. Everybody walks to the sign-in book at the beginning of the day, they sign it, and then they move on. But do they really read the information? Do they retain the information? Do we even know that they've taken it all in? And I think because there's so many moving pieces in the nursing facilities at all times, we try to push so much information out at them. And that was the quickest and easiest way to do it. But was it really beneficial and helpful to them? Probably not. So I think every time that there's something that's new is coming out, as Michelle mentioned, you do it real small in order to understand if it is it's successful, and then push it out little by little to make sure that everyone truly is retaining that information. And I mean, return demonstration on stuff, if it's something more like I've been talking about hand hygiene, I swear, for the past year and a half with everybody, but it's things like that where you can really watch what they're doing and be able to do that real-time training and education with them if there's something that's missed. And I think you are doing a great job by going back and checking these charts, checking the care plans, and making sure every box is checked. Michelle, Jean, any other?
The only other thing that occurred to me when Casey was talking about, finding someone to help with that education is your staff, and the ones that aren't doing it, that's you making it a safe culture where we can say, you're not going to get in trouble for this. Please just tell me why you're not doing it the right way. It's because it's most important to do it all consistently and to meet best practices, but there's lots of different ways to get there. And so, asking those individuals that are hands-on with it, what works and what doesn't, I think is your best way to try and get how to truly make this progress forward.
That's a great point, Michelle. Do a quick 5 whys. Hey,
Yeah.
I didn't send the alert. Why didn't you send the alert? Because I didn't realize it was through I know you have some kind of automated system. I can't remember what it is, April. I didn't know it was through there. Well, why didn't you know that? Because I just started work last week and I'm new. I mean, you can really get to your root cause quickly and then be able to make sure everyone's clear on it. And I think Jean said that too, is just making sure it's very clear directions on what to do, and they just were unfamiliar with that specific system.
Should we move into our next section?
Yeah, thanks for sharing, April.
Yes, thank you very much, April. We're going to look at discussing our next topic here. After consulting with some of our mentor facilities, we thought the next topic would be exciting to see would be staff morale, and as well as some of your staffing concerns that might be addressed through this. Casey found this wonderful picture that I think has some excellent ideas. I'm a big fan of bubble wrap. And I don't know if this is something that might come like with medical supplies that you guys order sometimes. If not, I think it's fairly inexpensive on Amazon to potentially order bubble wrap for those moments of stress that might be relieved. We also thought the idea of erasing negative thoughts with back to school erasers might be out there and available as well. And then we have some discussion items here moving forward. So first thing we would like you to address, and maybe this would be a chat or obviously open discussion, feel free to unmute yourselves, that sort of thing. How would you rate your staff morale? We also thought maybe discussing this by color might be preferred in case it's everybody's purple or maroon, whatever that is.
Maybe they're all excellent. Wouldn't that be awesome? Yeah, I think I can relate with Melissa that a lot of the facilities I've been working on with, it's been poor just because it's such a challenging time right now, and staffing has been such a challenge.
Depends on the day. That's true. Mondays maybe a little bit more poor. No. Those Monday blues, I don't know.
Yeah, all right.
And maybe that's why we have these sessions on Wednesdays. And then talking about the day of the week, also do you think this is, or do you think COVID has impacted this? Do you think that your staff morale has increased or decreased with COVID?
Much worse. Yeah, I would think about too, guys, is there something that you did pre-COVID besides not wearing a mask and not getting tests and not being short on staff, the obvious things, but is there something you did for employee morale that was good before and the staff were very happy about? And is it possible to re-implement that? I wish there was a button we could tell everybody they didn't have to wear a mask and get tested anymore.
Or that, I don't know what commercial it is, but the easy button that you push, it just makes things, just one button, everything would be easier.
I think that's Staples or something.
Okay.
I think.
And then maybe moving into what you see as potential roadblocks into improving staff morale and how to potentially address those. And like we say, this is kind of a great forum for discussion. So if one facility has hit a roadblock, maybe another has, and it's been able to be addressed. Or if this is even just a time to let loose or vent or whatever, please feel free.
Yeah, Sabrina. Well, Melissa said they're doing an off-site barbecue for staff. That'll be nice to do something new. And then Sabrina says that the long-term care clients are more acute, which has been causing some staff burnout. And are they more acute because of COVID hospital stays are just more acute because that's what you get in nursing facilities now. And trying to get the staff to understand what they're doing to take care of those folks. Yeah, I can say that I remember whenever I was in the facility, we would get more acute patients and didn't really have the funding to increase staffing as much. And so they may have needed more staff to take care of them, but we couldn't adjust as much where we wish we could have. Oh, that's nice, Mary. Mission Matters, if you guys see that in the chat, it's a new recognition program to recognize staff for going above and beyond. Yeah, we did something similar too, where you caught somebody with a smile or caught somebody being respectful or whatever the case, something that you caught them positive doing, and then you placed the stars up to recognize them.
And then this one is, again, you guys have mentioned a couple of these so far with the Mission Matters and the barbecue. Are there other initiative ideas that you've implemented or are considering implementing to boost morale?
Yeah, Melissa, I see your comment about the roadblocks. Is there anything specific that you've tried to do to address that generational gap and not taking the pride in your work? Or anybody for that matter. That's I can definitely see that as being a roadblock if anybody else has experienced it and put something in place.
Well, just for a quick example is I had a CNA meeting yesterday and we were talking about like this generation of residents kept their areas very tidy. They wouldn't have their toothbrush and deodorant in a box next to their bed. Like they put it in the bathroom, in the medicine cabinet, things like that. And the younger staff didn't think anything of it. It was no big deal. Like, who cares where you put it? It's all tidy in a little corner of their dresser. And so just little things like that, they don't see that it doesn't bother you, but it bothers the resident or it bothers the family. Or like we have two families in particular who come in to pick out clothes and outfits for a couple of residents constantly because they get so irritated that our staff can't match outfits. And we kind of chuckle at it, but how sad is it? Because they just, I don't know if they don't take the pride in it or they just don't see that obviously these two things don't match. And so even I will take them back down the hall and say, you guys, come on, you got to put something else on this person. But I can only do that so often and I'm not here all the time every day. And so just little things like that. I don't know if it's so much that they don't take pride in it or they just don't notice those little things, and those little things make a big difference.
Yeah, I think my first response to it then would be, do you keep your toothbrush in your bedside table? Or,
and I said that and I swear some of them are like, oh yeah, I totally do. Oh, really? Okay, good. Like I don't, but okay.
Yeah, I think we go back to earlier when I was talking about creating that, that positive culture and how you have to model a behavior. And I think that all leaders in nursing facilities truly have to model the behavior that you expect. And one of my very first bosses, he used to say all the time, you inspect what you expect. And so you model the behavior and then you go back and you audit and check it and then make sure that you're clear on your communication to the staff of what the expectation is. I love it, Melissa. That just that shows how hard of a worker you are. Well, thanks for sharing, guys. I feel like we had lots of conversation. Michelle, Jean, Sarah, Casey.
I guess one question I would ask the group, obviously there's, pizza parties and ice cream socials and stuff that are always great, but are there other, I don't know, I guess long-term plans in place that can help boost morale, besides maybe just for that day or that week or month, or any other things that kind of programs you're putting in place to kind of help boost morale?
I like how you mentioned long-term plans in place. I think if you do plan things out, hey, every quarter we are going to do this, and then you have to obviously stick with it. Then they know that it's still coming. This isn't that one-time thing like, hey, you just ordered pizza and gave us pizza today. But I know that every few months we're going to do some kind of celebration. It's in the books, it's on the calendar or whatever. And then they have something to look forward to. Employee of the week.
And then as we were discussing this recently too, we're kind of trying to think of ideas to help potentially with root cause analyses and that sort of thing. And Casey identified some of these questions that we came across the other day, and just kind of wanted your thoughts on them, or as we move into the root cause analysis part, if you guys have any other tools, tips, tricks, that sort of thing.
So these are kind of just conversation starters to maybe engage staff to kind of, I mean, obviously we know COVID plays a big role, but you know, maybe it's more than that, or if there's other things contributing to staff morale that maybe just get overlooked because COVID is such a big factor and has been for so long. So we just kind of wanted to throw these questions out to maybe peek a little bit further into staff morale and why things are the way they are. So
I think these are great starting points to work with your team to start your root cause analysis on staff morale, to start digging into it. I chuckle a little bit when I see the very first one, what thoughts keep you awake at night. My thoughts were always, am I going to get the phone call for a reportable at 3 a.m. I'll wake up and do. I'm sure most of you have the same thing. All right. Do we have any more on the staff morale or staffing in general?
Not today. The next slide is a potential video on falls. But if we want to keep going with staff morale, please feel free to chat, unmute your mic. If not, I'm happy to move to that video.
Well, I thought I would mention quickly, at the very beginning of these questions, we said staffing and staff morale. We understand that staffing is a challenge in most facilities right now. I talked to a facility the other day that had, maybe it was on our Monday call, that had 70% staffing agency in their facility. Those of you who have been able to get over the hurdle and get some new staff, if you have any tips or tricks for your peers on the call, love to share those, because I know it's a challenge everywhere.
Or I think recruiting strategies too, I think we talked about in our planning meeting. They try to reach out to the local high school and just didn't get anywhere with that. So if there's been successful recruiting strategies for staff, if you have thoughts or ideas to share with the group, I think that's always beneficial.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if this was across the country or just in the state of Texas, but I was working with a facility. They got a temporary waiver for CNA's certification. I guess it was maybe before they tested. They were approved for a temporary time to work. Just something to look into. But yeah, we talked about possible high school students working. And even if you have high school students that can do, I used to call them hospitality aides. I don't know what they may be called, but basic CNA duties that didn't require a certification, passing trays, making beds, passing linen, those sort of things, pushing people to activities. Just visiting in general.
Are a majority of our facilities using agencies to get their staff? Just curious. Or have they been able to hire or keep on, I guess?
Agency nurses. And nurses. Yeah, and something to consider when you guys are using the agency folks too is working with whatever agency that is to make sure that they have all the education in place for some of your new policies and protocols that you've done related to COVID. Congratulations, Mary. And then how do you recruit the agency staff to work for you full time? Save a few dollars there for the administrators on the call. So Mary, you have no agency. What are you doing to hold down your staff?
Oh no, Billy, you're losing them to traveling. That's that's not good. We say prayers daily.
Yeah, well, that's definitely one way.
And wasn't that another way we discussed in our planning meeting was putting like a recruitment message in the Sunday church bulletin, potentially, especially with the challenges with the drought and farming and that sort of thing. That was.
Yeah, absolutely. And look at those things. Yeah, we did talk about that the other day. If there is an industry that is struggling, then folks still need to work. And so you may be able to find some of those people to come in and cover. And another option I would think of is if you've had staff leave because of COVID in the facility and they say, oh no, I just don't want to work in this environment anymore, I would go back and reach out to them again. Say, hey, I understand this is why you left. We would love to have you back. You're one of our best employees, so on and so forth. And see if you can recruit back some of those that have left. Because they may be bored at home. When I had my first child, I quit working and it only took 8 months for me to go back. I said, I can't do this. So you just never know. If you reach out to them and talk to them, they may be happy to come back and see a friendly face. Referral bonuses are always a good incentive, for sure. Another option, I know that we had encouraged some of our non-clinical staff to consider going and getting their certification to become a CNA. And then they kind of just split their time. So say it was a housekeeping staff or a dietary staff to become a CNA and then work, part week as a CNA, part week in dietary or housekeeping. They may get a little extra money for getting their certification, but still help cover both areas. And sometimes it's easier to fill the housekeeping and dietary slots because they're not clinical. So if you pull them from there. Awesome. So see, Mary had 2 housekeepers take the CNA class. And hosting, can you guys host CNA classes now in your facilities with the pandemic? Or any of the local CNA schools? That's awesome, Sabrina. And I think that's a good way to sell the jobs in a nursing facility is you can start out here, but you have so much opportunity to grow within the facility and stay working in the same place your entire career. But you could move from a housekeeping position all the way to a director of nursing administrator position if that's what you wanted to do. And I know a lot of facilities have some kind of tuition assistance programs. Now, I'm not sure if the CNA classes are still going on right now during COVID or not. I would assume with the clinical portion, if they can't go in, I don't know that they're even able to do them. Oh, good point. I'm not sure if you saw in chat, Sabrina said that if you've passed pharmacology during nursing school, you can easily get your med-aid license and then work that way. And how many of you are able to split some of those duties with your med-aids? We used to I can't remember exactly how we split the hours on their shift, but we split it up where the nurses did like the morning pass because it wasn't as heavy. And the med aid worked as a CNA. And then they did the midday pass because it was a heavier pass. And then for the next shift, kind of a similar thing. And so at the end of the day, the nurses do the evening pass and the med aid works as a CNA. Just kind of trying to look at your system and how it works and if you can make some adjustments to do some of that coverage. Awesome. So if anyone else is close to BSC, I assume that's one of the schools for CNAs. Sabrina or Sarah's getting them from there. They're still doing classes. Yeah, well, at least you have a plan in place, Norma. Getting 1 to 2 at a time is better than none. So to test and get certified. What about the local trade association? I would just be curious if they're putting anything out to assist with staffing or have any plans. I don't know who y'all's is, Michelle.
That's North Dakota Long-Term Care Association. We only have one trade organization in our state. And they, did work really, they worked with the HCA to get that temporary CNA, but that is coming to an end, I believe, in October.
Okay. Well, I appreciate everybody sharing in chat. I think folks have some good ideas and putting some good plans in place and try to, that's once again part of this collaboration and all, not just learning together, but also sharing your good ideas and what's worked for you. So I appreciate this chat time. I hope it was helpful for all of you.
And then just as we mentioned, we're kind of wrapping up our falls. So again, just our homework, little reminder. If you feel like submitting any, that would be great.
I would love to see if anybody does have any data with falls that they did, just last month and this month. If you changed any of your interventions, it did any PDSAs, we'd love to have you share that.
And along with that, if you guys want to start thinking about how you would like to conduct your RCA for staff morale, that would be great as well. And we'll probably deep dive into that a little more next week. Let's start that request. So if you could please send in whatever you have for falls, that would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, and root cause analysis and quality improvement in general should be an interdisciplinary team approach. And this is a very important topic to make sure that you're including that line staff in, because they know how they feel and they know why they feel that way. So make sure that you're trying to get as many of them involved in that RCA process as possible.
This is also our little friendly reminder. If you would like any technical assistance, that sort of thing, we have wonderful mentors with us. So just let us know and we will put you in touch with them. And we're here to discuss a variety of topics. So it doesn't just need to be falls or staff morale, but whatever you identify as a need, a challenge, we would be, or our mentors would be happy to discuss that with you. And if anyone has any additional comments, questions, concerns, please let us know. Do any of our mentors have any closing comments?
Thanks for sharing today.
Yes, well, thank you. Hearing nor seeing any additional thoughts, comments, concerns, I will give you the last 5 minutes of your hour back on this Wednesday afternoon, and I hope everyone has a wonderful day.